Welcome to Live Ball with Paige Dauer, presented by Harper Volkswagen. Welcome to Live Ball with Paige Dauer, presented by Harper Volkswagen. Welcome to Live Ball with Paige Dauer. Welcome to Live Ball with Paige Dauer, presented by Harper Volkswagen.
Good afternoon. Tennessee basketball is playing its best stretch of the season. 4 straight wins, and they're back inside the top 25. And now they're getting ready to go on the road in a rematch against the Kentucky Wildcats, this time in Rupp Arena. And it's a rematch that was just a matter of 3 weeks ago, where the Wildcats handed Tennessee one of its most brutal losses on this season. But this rematch is a chance to prove that Tennessee has maybe learned from that lesson, that they're a better team and more reflective of this 4-game winning streak, closing out the month of January 3-0 and starting February 1-0. Is a chance for Tennessee to get back in the right side of this series with the Kentucky Wildcats. We're diving right in. It's Live Ball.
Welcome to Live Ball with Paige Dauer, presented by Harper Volkswagen.
Now, this isn't just another conference game for Tennessee. It's a chance to prove that they really can win in more ways than one, similar to how they've looked in this 4-game winning streak. For Tennessee in this rematch against Kentucky, there are a number of things that are on the line. Looking at the list, Tennessee can even the score in this rivalry. They can continue to make some headway in the SEC standings, being a couple of games back from those top 2 teams in the SEC. And it also signals that they can win in hostile environments. We've seen it the last couple of games on the road for Tennessee, most notably against Alabama in what is one of the most hostile environments. Tennessee was able to handle the moment there, and that's the key for Tennessee, because where they have struggled in the beginning part of this season is not handling the moment, whether at home and especially on the way, and especially in the final 4 minutes of the game. We talked about it a few weeks ago, where Tennessee, those last 4 minutes have been brutal for them. It kind of seriously wipes away every good thing that they had done in the games leading up. And let's talk about it with Kentucky. They led for about 39 minutes in that game, but a trio of pick sixes at the end. It erased a 17-point lead, and the Kentucky Wildcats able to escape Thompson Bowling Arena at Food City Center with a win against Tennessee. For all intents and purposes, Tennessee should have never lost that game. So there's a lot that's on the line for Tennessee in this matchup. When you look that we're starting the month of February and March, I can hear it. The dance is going to start to take shape here soon. When we go to the series history between these two teams, for Tennessee, Rupp Arena has not been a kind place for Tennessee. Just 20 wins to 95 losses there. But the good thing, Tennessee has won there recently, most notably a couple of seasons ago on the heels of what Zakai Ziegler and Josiah Jordan-James were able to provide the Tennessee Volunteers, both pouring in 26 points each to get a 103-97 victory, I believe it was at that time. And interestingly enough, in that game, it's the only time Tennessee had put up 100 points in that matchup. And all of this kind of comes down to Tennessee being able to handle hostile environments, being able to be composed late in games. And it also ended up creating this very funny moment with Rick Barnes following the Auburn game, where sometimes a little bit of that focus, it still slips at times.
At the end of the game, some of the passes that we throw, I don't know what to say other than sometimes I wonder if my guys are betting on games. I shouldn't say that, but That's what erase that. I don't want to say that. But I just wonder what's happening. I mean, because I know we're too good of players to do that. Was that a bad? I apologize. I shouldn't have said that, but But the fact is, we've got to get some.
Yeah, so maybe said the quiet part out loud in that moment. I'm talking to Rick Barnes about the team's focus, and he can't help but talk about where they have lacked focus. And in the SEC League, you cannot afford to lose your focus for a moment, especially late in games when it comes to poor decision-making, leading to untimely and bad pass turnovers. Jacoby Gillespie has been quite candid about it a couple of times, even following the Alabama game when we asked him, about those final few possessions. And it's because, even though that they had those turnovers, they were able to get the stops, make the free throws, something that Kentucky was able to take advantage of the first time that they met. So you certainly can allow that to happen again. And, speaking of this rivalry with Kentucky, I mean, at the time that they first met in the beginning of or earlier in this season, Kentucky was a team that was still kind of trying to find its identity. They were, on the road for a number of games. They had suffered some early, league losses. Who is this, Mark Pope-led team going to look like? They started to find their identity in a buzzer-beater win against LSU before they went and took on Tennessee and all but kind of stole that game in the last couple of seconds. I think, a minute and 15 seconds is how long they led that game. And ever since those pair of wins for Mark Pope's team, they have begun to really look like a reformed team. Even if you take out that loss against Arkansas, where it felt like at times they got a little punked in that game as well, Kentucky is a team that is starting to believe in itself, and that makes for a dangerous team. It's the same mindset that Tennessee is really having in this stretch as well, where they are starting to put together a more full, complete game. They have more confidence. They're getting better play out of their star players, like Nate Emmett, the freshman forward for Tennessee, having a number of 20-plus point performances these last handful of games. This is going to be a very interesting matchup, and talking to Nate Ament and JP Estrella after the Ole Miss game, they even highlighted what's going to be required of them when they go into this rematch with Kentucky.
We're just really excited. We're going to bring more toughness. That's what we're really going to harp on, I believe. Defensively, continue to do what we've been doing.
We got to play a full 40 minutes against them, or else they're going to come to play and beat us.
So there's so many interesting parts about this game that we're going to get into when we have VFL Jeronne Maymon and VFL James Warren on, the sales manager here at Harper Audi, which we're always happy to be presented by Harper Auto Square. It's a proud partner of Tennessee Athletics as well. And we're going to get their insight on this Tennessee and Kentucky matchup. We'll have a lot coming up on the South Carolina and Lady Vols game as well. But for this game for Tennessee and Kentucky, it'll certainly be a rematch where certain players like Otega Owe, Denzel Aberdeen, where they took over the game in the second half against Tennessee, they're really starting to come into their own as well. I mean, if you remember Otega Owe, he was the preseason SEC Player of the Year. Certainly somebody that Rick Barnes and company will have to keep an eye out on when they get ready for their Saturday match inside Rupp Arena. But when we come back from the other side of this break, we are diving straight into those key moments this season for Tennessee that they'll need to rely on in this matchup. We'll be back on the other side of this break.
See it behind your eyes. I'm already there. Calling me home.
I have always wanted a perfect smile. Today's Smile Express is going to help me to hopefully get a perfect smile.
With the help of Smile Express, I can actually get my perfect smile within 20 weeks. Not to mention how the staff is so friendly and helpful. Here they were taking a couple pictures just to do a before and after once we're done with the process. I honestly thought it was so cool how you could actually see my teeth 3D printed on the screen, and I'll show you guys how they're expected to look once the treatment is done. I am so happy and excited to share this with you guys because Smile Express is about to give me a straight smile.
You're watching Live Ball with Paige Dauer and Jeronne Maymon. presented by Harper Audi. Welcome to Live Ball with Paige Dauer, presented by Harper Volkswagen.
Welcome back into Live Ball. This time it's talking about everything that matters when it comes to the Tennessee Volunteers and what has led to this 4-game winning streak for Rick Barnes' team. And you could look to a couple of defining moments, most notably their last pair of wins, one against an Auburn team where it required a lot of physicality out of Tennessee. And then for Ole Miss, it required them to be able to spread the floor with what they can do from the perimeter and both from the paint as well. And Tennessee was able to do both of that. We're, of course, joined now by VFL Jeronne Maymon. Jeronne, it's good to see you again.
Yes, it's always great to be here. I love the energy. I love the vibe. And another great week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this rematch against the Kentucky Wildcats. And obviously being a former Tennessee basketball player as well, this rivalry was certainly a tough one during your time as well.
Yeah, sometimes going up against the Calipari era, they had a lot of good players come through, a lot of NBA players. But I think a lot of familiarity comes from playing teams multiple times. So I'm excited to see what version of Tennessee we get this time around after what happened here in that game.
Yeah, we talked about in the first block too, for Tennessee to have this 4-game winning streak, I think for a lot of it builds a lot of confidence for this team. I think even in that first meeting against Kentucky, I think they were still struggling to figure out what part of their identity they really wanted to lean into or even have it being the leading factor to their identity. After that meeting, I feel like we're really starting to see this Tennessee team that has multiple layers of confidence to them.
Yeah, well, I think at some point in the season, there really is a turning point from the team that started the season to the team that will finish. You see just over the last couple games how consistent we've been in the second half.
Yeah.
Right? We've really been showing that we can put together a good, not a good overall game, but we start off a little slow, but the trends second half has been our season.
Yeah. When we can go to maybe one of the key defining moments that I have for this team this season, I think it's how good they've looked defensively. They've needed that specifically in their last 2 wins against Auburn and Ole Miss. Very different styles, require a lot of different things from you. It's a switching defense by Ole Miss, and then Auburn, I think they just want to out-physical you the most of the part of the game. So for Tennessee to win 2 very different games in 2 very different ways should build, again, that name we'll call it. Rick Barnes looks for consistency, C word. I look for confidence, C word. And for Tennessee to be able to close out defensively the way they did should hopefully translate to a road game against Kentucky.
I would like to think so, because when you think about playing good teams, and like we said last week, I think now's the time you start to see teams to separate and see who's going to start to rise to the occasion. I think a team like Tennessee beating the Ole Miss team who's been in pretty much every game all season, and they've showed consistency. That game this weekend was this past week was very close. Like, it wasn't, like, the score wasn't not indicative
Correct,
of how
yeah.
close that game. I was at that game, and I watched the flow of it, and I even said to myself, I said, this is going to be a tough game. Because I watched how the first half went, and then the second half, there were spots, but then Ole Miss would always find a way to make something happen, to make it come back to a close game. And then again, we see Nate Ament. He starts to become who he's becoming in these last couple games, and now we see the consistency of how he's rising to the occasion. It's beautiful.
And it's a great juxtaposition to what Tennessee looked like against Kentucky, where it was not great composure in the second half. I mean, Tennessee did a good job of holding Kentucky below its scoring averages, both from the field, the three-point line, the free throw line, to above all of those categories in the second half. And I think it had to come down to what Oteka Owe and Denzel Aberdeen did kind of to start that game. They both went from, I think 3 points in the first half to 28 in the second. I mean, they turned it on, and Tennessee didn't have an answer.
Yeah, sometimes the flow of the game can kind of catch you off guard. Like I said, if you're in the game and you are watching the plays happen and you're not actively being present, because sometimes you can be on autopilot. Okay, like, I'm supposed to be here. Here's where I'm supposed to be, because you've done it so long all week preparing for a team. So imagine the scout team in preparation for a team like Kentucky. You're going to be inundated with information day after day, week after week, you're watching film on these guys constantly, and then you actually start the game. Now you can kind of be robotic if you're not really understanding the moment. And I think sometimes that's what gets most players. And so going to a place like Rupp can be one of those things that can really just take you out of your element. And so I'm hopeful that this Tennessee team has taken what we didn't do in the first game and apply it in this next one.
You mentioned some of the flows that you're seeing within the games and maybe how that can dictate what's happening on the court. I kind of think back to Texas A&M where Tennessee's defense kind of over-switched or over-rotated too many times. It created a lot of, weak side shots. How has Tennessee grown in that perspective where we're not seeing so much over-rotation and there's not so many wide-open looks that opponents are getting now maybe in these last 3 or so games?
I think it's just more attention to detail. I think if you can find a way to be ready on the catch, that separates that creates the difference from a team who has to over-rotate to a team that's rotating on time. Yeah. Because I think that's what makes a good team good versus we have to over-rotate and then for the whole possession we're out of sync. And I see that happen with a lot of teams, especially when you're like a step behind or you feel like a step slow to everything, and then you always feel like you're in scramble mode.
How much does that start from a forward or post player like yourself? I hear it all the time when I'm at Tennessee basketball practice, and it's kind of like they're telling JP, like, get to a spot quicker, be faster, be faster. How important is that from winning that possession to losing it?
Well, I think when you're on the floor as an offensive team, you're looking for the advantage. The advantage is finding the swing mismatch where a big has to go close out on the guard, and now he is second-guessing whether the guard is going to shoot or drive. And for the most part, most guards, they just see how far you're going to come out. If you stop short, they're going to shoot. If you come out too far, they're going to go by you. And I think having guys who are ready to play when the ball is in the air, that's the difference. Like moving on air time allows you to be ready and willing to rotate at the right junction versus being late or early on the rotation and you still are in that scramble mode.
For Tennessee to have had success these last couple of games, specifically when it comes to those defensive rebounding numbers, how much pride are you taking in this Tennessee team dominating on the glass, kind of what you did when you were at Tennessee?
I think we have to have that be an element of what we control every game. Like it has to be a constant, right? If we can go into Rupp and we can control the boards, I feel really good about our opportunities because not only do we get multiple looks at the rim, we get those second chance points, and we're allowed to kind of control the pace of the game.
And it's an interesting point, too, because that's where Kentucky's continuing to see some growth is in their defensive rebounding. And even though Tennessee averages a total of 43 boards a game, Kentucky's like 38. That's a close margin in a game like this where even like the shooting percentages are pretty close.
Well, then it's going to go back to how we actually end up playing this Ole Miss game. We missed a lot of early bunnies.
Yes.
We missed a lot of
I was like, was the lid still on?
and you get to a point where you're like, if we're going to miss, we know we need to get this rebound. And I think the follow-up on that is if we can continue to have that mentality and have guys like Bishop Boswell show up and get 7, 8 boards consistently, that's impressive as a guard.
And he's had multiple games in a row now where he's had 8 boards. So that's incredible production that he's been able to provide as of late.
We need that gang rebounding because sometimes when you're dealing with other big or really aggressive offensive rebounders or defensive rebounders, you need the guards who usually like to leak out or just kind of like to stand and watch the ball. If the guards rebound down, it makes it that much more better for our team and our opportunities.
When you look to this season at this point, what are a couple of these defining moments that you hope Tennessee can replicate in this rematch against Kentucky?
Well, what I really want to see some of our guys consistent in their approach to how they've been playing. Like the team that we're playing doesn't really even matter. If we can continue to have guys show up and even Nate Ament to consistently put second halves together, even after a struggling first half. Because sometimes when you have a freshman who may struggle in the first half, they may kind of go quiet in the second half. But no, he stays aggressive. And I think if we can have those guys that continue to stay aggressive, it'll put us in a position to win the game.
What have you enjoyed most about Nate Ament's growth? Even just a couple of points in the first half. Of course, he got his knee banged up a little bit in that first half, was on the bench for the most part, but then came alive in the second half, 26 or so points. And Rick Barnes says, I saw a look in his face. It's so funny he's talking like this. He's like, I saw a look in his face. So he was starting to like heat up. So we turned the burner up for him so he could keep cooking. Yeah. I was like, who is this Rick Barnes? But anyway, it was true. That's exactly what happened from the stands. How fun was that to watch?
Well, I kind of felt like his sous chef. You know, if Rick Barnes is going to talk about turning up the heat, I think when you watch a player like Nate and some of the things that he's able to do, and sometimes from the crowd, you're like, do it now. And I think when you watch him, he's always at his own pace, and I think he's finding his own rhythm of being able to pick his spots and then pick the way he wants to attack the offensive possession.
Because you mentioned the quickness too. What I've enjoyed about Nate Ement's growth these last couple of games is he's not always going to take a high volume of threes at that forward position. He's much quicker in his decision making to just kind of have this catch and shoot kind of moment. There were several times in the game against Ole Miss where the shot clock was within 2 seconds of going off, and he just kind of had all this poise and composure. He's just like, okay, took a feed from Jalen Carey, had a kick out like a 3-point line, I think. That's the kind of like quickness and confidence you need on the road, especially.
Yeah. Well, you know, sometimes these players, they start to develop this internal clock and this internal confidence where things start to flow. This is part of the season where you start to see some of the best basketball, and especially when you got guys who are still becoming.
Yes.
You know, they're going to show us some things where we're like, oh, I'm really excited to see more of that.
And I know you mentioned Nate, and I'm also kind of maybe wondering about the 3-point line as well in this game, because for all intents and purposes, these are two teams that are pretty close statistically in all of the categories. Is it production from the 3-point line that could be the difference? Because Tennessee doesn't have as many perimeter shooters as a Kentucky team does.
Yeah, I would say it's going to come down to a combination of who can make more and who can probably get to the free throw line and convert. I think at some level, we leave a lot of points on the board when we get to the line and we're not able to convert 2 for 2, especially earlier in the game. I can see fatigue, and I can see sometimes when the situation may just be highly anticipated and you may miss one. But for the vast majority of those free throws, those are gimmies. We got to have them.
Yeah, and even though this team is pretty decent with the free throw percentage, I know Bishop Boswell was kind of had a tough stretch for a moment, and he actually was in the gym after the game with his mom rebounding some of his free throws and mid-range looks. So hopefully that translates on the road as well inside Rupp Arena. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's all about the squeeze, those key matchups as we get ready for the Tennessee-Kentucky rematch, and then still to come, Lady Vols in South Carolina. We'll be right back.
See it behind your eyes. I'm already there, calling me home.
I have always wanted a perfect smile. Today's Smile Express is going to help me to hopefully get a perfect smile.
With the help of Smile Express, I can actually get my perfect smile within 20 weeks. Let's not mention how the staff is so friendly and helpful. Here they were taking a couple pictures just to do a before and after once we're done with the process. I honestly thought it was so cool how you could actually see my teeth 3D printed on the screen. And I'll show you guys how they're expected to look once the treatment is done. I am so happy and excited to share this with you guys because Smile Express is about to give me a straight smile.
You're watching Live Ball with Paige Dauer and Jeronne Maymon. Presented by Harper Audi.
Welcome back into Live Ball. Paige Dauer here, presented by Harper Auto Square, proud partner of Tennessee Athletics. And it's going to be a fun one, a rematch, this time in Lexington against Kentucky and the Tennessee Volunteers. A chance for Tennessee to avenge that last loss where they led for nearly 39 minutes, Jeronne, and could not get it done. Of course, we have Jeronne Maymon joining us again. Just when you look to this matchup and what it's going to take for Tennessee to get it's not necessarily an SEC tiebreaker because it's just the second meeting, but when you look at the SEC standings, there are a couple of games or wins back from being in that top tier of like the top 3 teams. You need this one over Kentucky to kind of serve as that tiebreaker at the moment, 1-1, if they can go on the road and get this win. I think this is a win that could go a long way when Tennessee looks to its seeding for the postseason, when it looks to hopefully getting that first round bye in the SEC tournament. This is kind of where teams really do start to separate themselves. So for Tennessee, they need to go 5-0. They need a 5-0 stretch right now, and it needs to be against Kentucky.
Man, I think with us just now breaking back into the top 25, it's imperative that we keep the movement or the momentum trending in the right direction going towards the end of the SEC season, because what's going to end up happening is we're going to be faced with some teams that we haven't seen yet. And I'm excited to see some of these teams that we haven't seen yet, and they're pretty good teams, but I think when you've already played a team and you already know what to expect from them, right, we should come in a little bit more prepared with a little bit more edge and obviously have a little bit more pride in what we're trying to accomplish, not only offensively but also defensively.
Of course, when you were playing at Tennessee, it was against a John Calipari-led team, and even his Arkansas Razorbacks handed Kentucky a loss the other week. So he is still the coach that probably was the coach when you played them at Kentucky. But going inside Rupp Arena, that arena is so interesting. I remember going there when I was a little younger, and unlike Food City Center, where it's a nice bowl that goes out, I mean, it's straight up. I mean, those fans are on top of you. It's a loud environment. What do you recall from those matchups on the road inside Rupp Arena?
Yeah, Rupp is a unique place. I don't like it. It didn't sit right with me, and obviously we didn't go in there and get a win the times that I were playing. But I do remember there is this distinct element of silence when you are a team that plays together from the start to the finish, because there's been times where you can easily go into any environment, but you have to be a team first. And I think sometimes you'll get in these environments, things will start to go haywire, you'll feel like the refs are against you, and then all of a sudden all things break loose and there's no discipline. I think at some level, if you can go in there and be disciplined to your approach to what you're trying to accomplish, no matter what the scoreboard says or no matter what kind of fouls the refs are calling on you, you'll have a better shot of coming out of there victorious.
Yeah, because you mentioned earlier wanting the fifth straight win, 5-0 in their last 5 games, hopefully a win in the rematch against Kentucky, because who they have coming up, it's Mississippi State, who's not an easy team, LSU, Oklahoma, then you get ready for Vanderbilt. So this is the time for Tennessee to really capitalize on some of this momentum that they have found these last handful of games, and really there's no better way to do that than against a Kentucky team who still has a very active fan base, and hopefully take them out of the game early.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do something pretty special, because like I said, when you watch this team, I don't think we've even played the best basketball.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the things that I'm most hopeful about, because I've seen spots and players, but I haven't seen a whole collective play a unified game of or a unified brand of basketball that's like all 5 are clicking or all 5 are in that flow state together.
Right. And maybe if Felix Akpara is back, he's missed the last couple of games with the left calf injury after getting banged up in the Georgia game. He's a great rim protector who could have done a really good job cleaning up some of those early bunnies, which I think JP Estrella has shown growth there, being able to clean up misses around the rim. But Felix Akpara is so dangerous there that you would hope to have him, or at least JP, take that next step.
Well, we're going to need everybody. I mean, you listen to Rick Barnes talk, and he's grateful for the other guys at the end of the bench that help these guys get prepared for these games.
Sure.
And sometimes when guys go down, we need other guys to be able to step up, and having a guy like Felix out and you have JP getting a little bit more minutes, I think JP's been doing a fantastic job. I mean, the hook over the left shoulder, he's been knocking it down, man. And, I think the more confidence that he gets from playing more minutes when Akpara does come back, they're just going to be clicking.
Yeah, because I would agree that JP maybe has a couple more wrinkles to his game offensively than what Felix Akpara has. You mentioned the hook. He's great at that. He's great at the putbacks as well. So they need that offensive production to continue to spread the floor against a really talented Kentucky team. If they can continue to do that, maybe gets to my squeeze, because it's all about the answer. When Kentucky was knocking down those threes to open up the second half, and they got those pick sixes late, Tennessee really didn't have a response. Whatever, fake confidence that they were trying to manufacture at that point in the season, they lost it, maybe because it wasn't real. So they talk about lack of effort, lack of focus. I think at this point, that narrative maybe is on the back burner, maybe not even a part of what this team will look like by the end of February. So for Tennessee, is it all about this? Maybe it's this perimeter defense, or maybe it's just about stopping momentum against a team that's also getting production from other players on their team, like Garrison. Colin Chandler is really starting to look like this guy. So they are turning into more of a complete team. Is this a game where it comes down to slowing down momentum or runs?
I think it's going to come down to perseverance and being able to execute at the right time, because there's going to be times in that game where it's going to be scoring droughts. For whatever reasons, somebody can't put the ball in the basket, but you have to be able to execute and get the best look. Yeah. It's a difference between running offense and getting just a shot that the defense wants you to take, versus running the offense and getting the shot that you want to take. And I think that kind of execution on the road is mandatory in order to even have a chance to win in a place like Rupp.
When we take one final look at this team getting ready for a rematch in an environment that Tennessee has just 20 wins in all time, most recently coming when ZZ and Triple J were part of the team with a 103-point effort against the Kentucky Wildcats. How does Tennessee maybe find the win column again here?
I think it's going to be early communication. It's going to be getting to the free throw line, converting at those opportunities, and then obviously holding the offense to one shot, and we're getting multiple looks at or attempts at the rim. Hopefully, we make some threes early in the game that kind of settles us in, that kind of gets us going in our rhythm.
Yeah, and hopefully they can rely on Nate Ament and Jacoby Gillespie once more. We shall see. Well, Jeronne, it's always good seeing you. Hopefully it's a good Tennessee win. I'll be inside Rupp Arena, so hopefully it's worth the late drive and late night. So
yeah, well, wear your Tennessee orange and obviously keep your head on the swivel. Those Kentucky fans could be a handful.
Okay, good to know. Jeronne, it's good seeing you. When we come back, we're going to turn the page to talk about the Lady Vols and the South Carolina Gamecocks when we come back.
I have always wanted a perfect smile. Today's Smile Express is going to help me to hopefully get a perfect smile.
With the help of Smile Express, I can actually get my perfect smile within 20 weeks. Not to mention how the staff is so friendly and helpful. Here they were taking a couple pictures just to do a before and after once we're done with the process. I honestly thought it was so cool how you could actually see my teeth 3D printed on the screen. And I'll show you guys how they're expected to look once the treatment is done. I am so happy and excited to share this with you guys because Smile Express is about to give me a straight smile.
Welcome back into Live Ball. Paige Dauer here, presented by Harper Audi, a proud partner of the Tennessee Athletics. We talked with Jeronne Maymon a moment ago about the Tennessee Volunteers getting ready for a rematch with the Kentucky Wildcats, but now we're turning the page to talk about the Lady Volunteers and the South Carolina Gamecocks, both of them coming off some pretty exciting wins last night. For the Lady Vols, it's an overtime win against the Georgia Bulldogs, where Kim Caldwell, the head coach for the Lady Vols, says, "I don't really care about the points. I'm just glad we rebounded," and that's a good key getting ready for this South Carolina team, who's a pretty good rebounding team and got an absolute blowout win over the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Now the Lady Vols are going on the road to take on South Carolina for what is essentially a primetime national game against South Carolina Sunday at 3 o'clock. And that's where we turn our page to bring in David Klogner with the Post and Courier, who is a beat reporter for the South Carolina women's basketball team. David, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Not a problem, Paige. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I came across your article a couple of weeks ago talking about South Carolina's maybe struggle at the free throw line, and it seems in these last couple of games they've actually been able to solve that problem. They've become a much better free throw team, and in some of these games, especially in the SEC, what you do at the free throw line can often be the difference makers with wins and losses, and this is a matchup where I imagine it's going to be a very physical game. These teams are very aggressive in their style of play. For South Carolina to find an answer to some of those free throwing woes, how important has that been to their recent maybe growth and being able to bounce back from a tough Oklahoma loss?
Well, it's been huge, Paige. You just can't give away points at the line, and especially when you lose an overtime game, you lose, by a couple of points. You look back at how many free throws you missed and say, that could have been. So they've been doing extra work. They come in before practice. They come in after every practice. As Dawn Staley says, every one of them's got a key to the gym. They can come in here anytime they want. So they have a team rule where every player has to make 30 after practice, and then you can come in any other time you want. Joyce Edwards in particular knew she was not having a very good stretch at the free throw line, but she's gotten in there and worked on it. And I think that she's only missed maybe 3 free throws over her past 4 games. So that's definitely what you want to see when you have a player like her who plays on the inside and is going to draw a lot of fouls, and also a player that is going to get her 20 points a game. 20 is always nice, but 25 could be better.
When we look to the matchup when it comes to the ability where both of these teams often rely on their younger players, South Carolina's been doing that for a long time, and now with Kim Caldwell relying on some young players as well, what stands out about the matchup that we might see with Mia Paldo, the point guard for Tennessee, and specifically the quickness that she provides. South Carolina, I find, can often be a very quick team as well. They get up in the press oftentimes, but Mia has found ways at times to take advantage of that. How much attention do you think she'll get in this game from the Gamecocks?
Oh, she'll get a lot, and everybody at Tennessee's a quality athlete. You have Barker, you have Talasia Cooper, who I knew for a year when she was here, and has really blossomed up there on Rocky Top. So they're all going to get that kind of attention. But with South Carolina, I think what they want to do is probably play Tennessee like they have, which is have their forwards defend Tennessee's guards. So if you can do that, you can kind of take Tennessee out of what they want to do by running the floor on you, trying to get that press in on you on defense early, and you can kind of take them out of their comfort zone. But of course, with Paldo specifically, I'm sure when she comes in, Raven Johnson will be her defensive assignment. Raven Johnson, fifth-year senior, lives for matchups like this, so I'm sure that she will be out there at least on her to start. We'll see if that lasts all game. And then it just kind of comes back to the availability question. South Carolina finished last night without 3 of its players. And when you only have a 12-woman team, that can really affect. So we'll see what the injury report reveals Saturday night going into Sunday, but I'm anticipating at least one starter being out for that game.
Yeah, I think that's some of the ideas that I'm getting out there as well, that South Carolina might be down a player. But you mentioned Joyce Edwards a moment ago, essentially averaging those 20 points per game. And a lot of what she does is getting production from the field. It's like 9 or so buckets a game that she's good for, it feels like, in these last handful of games. What is it about her style of play where she can work through that contact, can create space, and is incredibly efficient from the field?
That's what she wants to do, Paige. It's one of those where she was brought in to not necessarily do a specific thing, but to concentrate on what she does well. South Carolina was obviously losing a lot in the post, and then it got worse before this year when Ashlyn Watkins and Chloe Kitts, who were going to play a lot in the post, each got injured and were out for the year. So Edwards had to take over that role. And they said, you're going to have some help in there, but we need you to be the leader of that post group. And she's done that. She comes in there, she works on taking the contact and finishing inside, and hopefully getting a foul with it. If not, going to the free throw line for 2. So she, did have a little bit of a stretch where the points were hard to come by, and she was maybe lacking a tiny bit of confidence. But Joyce Edwards, known her for a year and a half now on the court, and that never lasts for long. She knows exactly what she wants to do and how she can go do it. And that's why you see a stat like she posted last night. She has up to 1,000 career points now at USC, and she did it in 64 games. By reference, Aja Wilson did it in 69 games.
Yes, I was thinking it was Joyce Edwards. I was listening to the post-game report the other night, and I could not remember her name, and it was funny hearing Dawn Staley talk to the media after, and she's like, you don't think she knew that she was up on 1,000 career points, but I think she did it 5 games quicker than Aja Wilson, who was an all-time great for the South Carolina Gamecocks.
Oh, yeah, and that's the thing. Numbers are numbers, stats are stats. And Aja, of course, had a lot of help around her, but she was a star from the first day she stepped in, and it's the same with Joyce Edwards. And, of course, Joyce, played it humble, said, I had no idea, to which Dawn Slater was like, yes, she did. She knows everything. So, but still, she got that mark, and, it's just the start to try to get the next 1,000, and that's going to start on Sunday against Tennessee. She knows the challenge there, and she also knows, as all the players do, these are the 2 one-loss teams in the league. And if South Carolina wins this game, looking at who they beat already in the rest of the standings, they're sliding right behind the wheel for another SEC regular season title.
Yeah, absolutely. Another note on Joyce Edwards for a moment, and I think what is revealed in those comments post-game is that she really is this very intellectually savvy player. How much does that change the makeup of this South Carolina team when you have young players who have such a great IQ to them that you can rely on in these critical moments?
Well, that's all part of the package. You want to have heady players that can go out there who can beat you because of what they're thinking and also because of what they can do with the ball in their hands. So it's all a part of the process at South Carolina. The hardest part of success is sustaining it. And Dawn Staley has managed to find that mix of great athlete and great player and, a great head for the game, not just basketball IQ, but, academic
Yes.
IQ to where she can keep this program where it is. So Joyce, one of those. I'm sure you all know that she was recruited here. They basically had to make a major for her because originally it wasn't going to be offered. But she's on the dean's list and continues to dominate on the court.
Yeah, truly on and off the floor for Joyce Edwards. A moment that I teased to at the beginning of the segment talking about rebounds. Kim Caldwell was incredibly proud of her team against Georgia for their rebounding efforts. In fact, they had 43 total rebounds, which is about the 10th time this season that they've been able to get 40 or more. And for South Carolina, they are averaging 43 rebounds per game this season. How much do you think this game will come down to who wins the battle on the glass?
Well, it's always going to be a huge, huge role because if you eliminate rebounds on the defensive end, then you're preventing them from taking a second chance shot. And also, if you can get your offensive boards, you're going to get those second chance points. So South Carolina, it is a little thin height-wise in the post. Medina Okot can be a dominating player, but she really has to get in the flow of the game to get there. Then Adele Tack, Miriam Dauda, and the newcomer Alicia Turnabes, they're doing what they can, but you can kind of see where they're going through their own limitations right now. Turnabes, because she's only been here for 3 weeks, and Adele Tack, she was going to be a terrific player. She had 2 major injuries in high school, and you can kind of see that she's still working through that, although she's the most positive and energetic player on the team. So you look at Tennessee, and it's maybe not dominating height, but they've got athletes, and they can jump, and they've got long, rangy arms that can get those rebounds. So USC knows that says we trust our half-court defense pretty well, and the transition defense is okay. But if you can limit them to one shot a possession, most possessions at home, you're going to be just fine.
It might be more of a softball angle to this matchup, but it's one that has plagued Tennessee a number of times this season, and sometimes it comes down to heart and focus and effort. For South Carolina, they have found that in the last couple of games, and for the most part, I think it shows up in third quarters in these games. Sometimes that can be a down quarter for the Lady Vols. Oftentimes, it looks like it's an up quarter for South Carolina. How much is this game that has all of the attention to massive brands and a national game on Sunday? It's just going to come down to who wants it more and who is playing with the right level of effort for 40 minutes.
It's a massive factor, especially USC playing at home on a Sunday afternoon. So, the place is going to be packed out. Nobody's going to have to be I got home late from work and I couldn't make it. They'll all be there, and they'll be there early. So they never want to lose at home. They never want to lose in front of their home fans. And as for the third quarter specifically, that's when they go in at halftime. And this team, as I mentioned before, depth has been an issue all year. You see them at the end of second quarters. Maybe they're a little fatigued. They can go in at halftime, get re-energized, and refocus on the game plan, to which, as Don Staley said, we concentrate, go out there and sock them in the mouth and see how they can do it. I still remember the Vanderbilt game, to which they were controlling. They gave up just a awful final 35 seconds and gave up 6 points. It was an 11-point game. Now it's a 5-point game, and Vandy's kind of in there and said, okay, how are you going to answer? They came out there and blew their doors off in the third quarter and ended up coasting to a dominant win. So they want to control that message from the start in the first quarter. They want to do it in the third quarter because they know it's not only what you want to do, you have to do it to preserve this team's depth. Again, they finished the game last night with 9 players. They really do not want to have to keep going through that this month and into the postseason.
And David, when we take one last look at this matchup, what do you believe will be the defining factor for South Carolina to come away with this win?
Well, we would start with the hot player, with Joyce Edwards. If she just goes out there and does what she does, I don't know if Tennessee has one player or maybe even a couple that can really slow her down once she gets into her groove. So we'll see how it goes from that. But also in the case of you go with your senior point guard. Raven Johnson has been on this team in a long time. And as Dawn Staley says, look, we win when she's out there. I believe she's only lost 9 games in 5 years. So she's going to be important. You look at what she does. It's not just the points to where she had 10 last night, but she had, I think, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. That's what you want from a senior point guard. And as good as Tennessee's athletes are, you look at the senior experience, the veteran leadership, and say, it's beaten maybe superior athleticism before. It should do it again.
Yeah, well, David, I really appreciate your time. It was great talking to you, and hopefully we get that exciting game and matchup that we're all anticipating on Sunday.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Paige.
Of course. All right, we were just joined by David Cogner of the Post-Courier, the South Carolina women's basketball beat reporter. It's been a fantastic show talking all things Tennessee men's and women's basketball. For Tennessee, they have to win this rematch against Kentucky on Saturday to continue to climb in the SEC standings, build on their recent momentum to win 5 in a row. For Tennessee, it will probably go through what they can do offensively. They need to find ways to continue to spread the floor, clean up those misses around the rim, and continue to get production from Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Ament from the perimeter and mid-range, and then slowing down what Kentucky to do. These are very similar teams. Otega Owe, Denzel Aberdeen, Colin Chandler, Garrison. They are great players from the field and the three-point line. Just a couple percentage points separates these teams. So it's who makes the fewest mistakes and in the most critical times will probably go and win this game. As we remember, Tennessee lost a 17-point lead to Kentucky in the final 90 or so seconds in their first meeting. Tennessee has a talent to create such a lead once again, and probably more poised this time around to not let go of that lead should they find it. But I will be in Lexington covering that game, so make sure you subscribe on our YouTube channel at Full Disclosure Pro so you don't miss out on any of the reaction and insight that we have from the players inside Rupp Arena, and then following that up with post-game coverage from the South Carolina and Lady Vols matchup on Sunday. Huge weekend for both teams and figuring out where they really are in the SEC. We'll talk to you guys again this weekend and Friday for more Live Ball.
Welcome to Live Ball with Paige Dauer, presented by Harper Volkswagen.
See it behind your eyes. I'm already there. Calling me home.
I have always wanted a perfect smile. Today's Smile Express is going to help me to hopefully get a perfect smile.
With the help of Smile Express, I can actually get my perfect smile within 20 weeks. Lots of mention how the staff is so friendly and helpful. Here they were taking a couple pictures just to do a before and after once we're done with the process. I honestly thought it was so cool how you could actually see my teeth 3D printed on the screen, and I'll show you guys how they're expected to look once the treatment is done. I am so happy and excited to share this with you guys because Smile Express is about to give me a straight smile.
You're watching Live Ball with Paige Dauer and Jeronne Maymon. Presented by Harper Audi.